All right. So click on this for the first time. And then after you get it set up, as I had said over here, once you get your registration set up or you get into your new account, then uh, you've got continued access that you do the exact same way. Go through course materials, and then you click on this, and it'll open up the course. This is what we call coordinator course. I copy it from like the lead teacher. I'm not a real fan of how these things are set up, but you just start with, they've got videos in here if you want them. But the main thing you're going to do is the section exercises. Now, they give you two videos here. And if I'd had a choice to copy one without the videos, I would have done it, because there's more than enough videos on already in here, and you can access them easy. I don't like the idea of assigning them as homework, and I'm going to try to take them out as far as the grade is concerned. But anyway, like the first thing we're going to look at is these quadratic equations, which is primarily a review, but we'll talk about them, and we'll look at primarily one way to solve them that is not considered a review. So if you're coming from 097, you learn the first step of it, but not how to finish it. But we'll come back to that in a second. All right. So let's see. So that's where everything's going to be done. You go in through homework, and everything will be there. And we'll have tests on there. I got to put an assignment on there, and I'm going to do that later today. I just thought about it. Because you got to test that Proctor respondus thing, and I'll put that in there in a bit. All right. So anybody got any questions so far? All right. So let's go back over here to the announcements. So you'll always go in to course materials. The first time you got to get set up. But then after that, you can always go through here. You can actually go to My Math Lab directly once you get signed up. So if you want to do that, or if Canvas is down, then you can just go to mymathlab.com and go in that way. All right, so anyway, I got a syllabus over here, syllabus addendum. So that's what this first one is. All right, so this is our class. Applied Algebra Fall 2001, Math 128. I mean, this is just basically a contract. If you're staying in the course, you know, you agree and abide by this. which is primarily just, rules for, um, grading. You got the course information here. This is the time we meet, 9 to 10:15. And then me, Professor Cruz. All right. My office is this 118B right now. I'm going to be over in the West Bank Advanced Technology Center at some point. But for right now, if you need me, we can just talk before or after class because I'll be here online. I've got a number here. It's that you can text me at if you need me. Just remember, I'm not up to all hours of the night. I one time had a student like, and maybe more than one, like send me a text at midnight, said, "Oh, I missed that deadline." Well, I get stuff like that. I ignore it. You got to let me know ahead of time on things like that because I don't always just have my computer handy and ready to go in and fix somebody's problem. All right. So this is synchronous online course. In other words, we meet in a specific time. And it looks like most of the people in here know that. Since you are here, let's see. I think we got like 30 people. 6. It's only 6 people in that. Here, I'll go over those in a little bit. I try to be fairly informal, but I do expect that if you're in here to be paying attention because I am recording it, and that's one aspect that you can just go back and look at it. But if I ask people something or tell people something, then you're responsible for it. So just keep that in mind. Most of the things that are really important, I'll write them down, or the really most important things are in this syllabus addendum. Now, there's the TI 8483 series. That calculator, for the most part, will do what you need to do. The problem with having, because the reason why you can do 83, 84 is just because the 83 is a little bit older than 84. The only problem is if you want to know how to do something, they'll explain it in text with a particular calculator. So if you want to learn how to do something with one that's not exactly like that's in there, you can make Google your friend and have it show you, have Google show you how to do it. Usually for everything you ever want to do, there's a Google video made for it concerning TI. Now, here's the thing is, I like Chromebooks, but at this point, the My Math Lab proctoring system is not compatible with Chromebooks, only Windows and Mac. All right. So here's the breakdown. Basically, the chapter tests, of which there are 4 of them, I believe, is 25%. You got a midterm exam is worth 25%. All the homework is 10%. There's anything that's coded as a quiz is 5%, and the final exam, 35%. And it's the 10-point scale, which is given right there. So there actually are 5 tests. I'm sorry. So there are 5 tests. I said 4. But one of them is the midterm, same test. Midterm / test 3. And of course, an exam is going to be comprehensive. So, for example, on that test that we'll have by the end of the month, you'll have 1.5, 1.6, and 2.1 on it. And then after that, it kind of turns more into chapters. The rest of chapter 2. And then we break chapter 3 into 2 parts. And then chapter 4, partial, is the last test. And then a final exam. And there we go. So just remember about academic honesty. When you take these proctor tests, you're being recorded, and so I've got proof if I see anybody doing anything. And the school is real big on academic honesty, so don't risk cheating because you're not necessarily going to be able to look at other people's papers. That's one of the things you do in a regular class, but you don't give assistance to anybody. You don't use a cell phone, a math program. You only use the kind of calculator that's mentioned up there, the TI 8384. And you can't get on Mathway, all right? We're going to have that lockdown browser, so you can't do it with the um, computer browser. And also, like I said, you do not want to have your phone out during a test or an exam. All right, so just a little word the what we call the 14th day, and it'll be August 30th. Um, Up to that point, I can drop a student for not completing assignments, and it's not just being here; it's actually getting a start on things. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to have you do in a second. All right. Thought I had it in here. I'll have to write it down there. But the first thing you want to do is, oh, here it is. Let me get, right. So this is, if you're going to stay in the course, if you're not ready by the end of the month by doing these things, like I said, I consider that you're dead in the water. You're not going to be able to be successful in the course. Because what you need to do is you're going to upload your copy of your photo ID to Canvas. I'll show you that in a second. And then you're going to be signed up for the math lab so you can take this Respondus browser check. I'm going to have that in here by the end of the day. So it's just like a little quiz that has you download the Respondus browser app, install it, and then you'll be able, it'll lock your system down, and then you just answer a few questions. All right. So under assignments, see here, click on assignments. Upload photo ID. And you know what? I should go in as a student because it's going to look a little bit different. Why is it not in there? Let me go check it. I must have not have done something right on it. Oh, I don't have it published. There we go. Now, so there, you click on that. And it's probably best to scan it. If you can do it with a good phone, but you want to have a clear ID. Click start, and then you can upload. You can also use your webcam if you got a good webcam. The reason why that's kind of hard is just because, you know, your hand might tend to shake. So however you want to do it, but it's got to be identifiable. You know, you got to be able to see your face and your name. So you just click, choose the file. Let's see. I thought I might have an ID in here already, but anyway, I'll just put a picture in there for right now. So you put it in there, and then you submit the assignment. And you see you get confetti because that means you did a good job. Either one, either one, Delgado ID or driver's license. If you don't have a Delgado ID, um, I believe I know here on the West Bank, the campus police is the one that gives them out, but I think that's the same thing over at City Park. But you could use a driver's license, either one. And then, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do something real quick. All right. I'm going to put we got to leave the, okay. Let me stop the share for a minute. All right. Y'all can just look at me. If you got any questions, go ahead and let me know right now. I'm going to put that little put that little assignment in there right now because it's something I can do real quick. All right. So maybe I already got this in here. Doesn't like that. I think maybe I already got it in here. Yeah, there it is. Why in the world are we not seeing it? Just hold on. Oh, I know why. It's just set on homework. Okay, there we go. All right, let's go back to the share. I thought I had done it. All right, so when you go into homework, oftentimes it defaults to homework, but there's also going to be quizzes and tests. Now, the first one, as I said, is this one. I'm going to set the dates for the other tests manually. They're not on there right yet. I'm not, but these homeworks, you should be able to access them, do them. But here's the one right here that's important for the first work you're going to do, the Respondus browser check. And I'm telling you about doing this before the 14th day, and I'm putting you in the threat of being dropped for not doing this because this is so important because you cannot take a test or an exam without it. So the first time you do this, all right, you're not going to be able to just start tests. You got to do this download Pearson lockdown browser. And you do that, and then you're going to have to install it. And once it downloads, I'm not sure I can install it on this school computer, but we'll see. If you ever want to go and take advantage of some of the resources that Delgado has on the City Park campus, upstairs on the second floor of building 2, there is a lab. It kind of looks like a fishbowl because it's got glass all around it. They've got a lab set up where you can do this. But anyway, but you got to install it. And like I said, it's going to take a while to do it. So you cannot take the tests until this is done. So that's why I want to have you do that before the 14th day to stay in. That and upload your ID. Why is it people asking me for a passcode? Y'all got in without a passcode. I take the passcode off. It kind of defaults to passcode, but there shouldn't be anything with a passcode on it. All right. So anyway, it's eventually gonna. Okay. Thanks for letting me know, Chelsea. Now I know the video, and this is something that I didn't know about the videos in the past because I record these and I put them on the cloud, and you should be able to go in and see them. But I just realized yesterday because people were asking me for passcodes for like months, and what I was doing, I was just putting them on YouTube anyway. But with this, it was asking for a passcode to see the video, and I have to actually share it. So I didn't realize it had to be shared. And then when you share it, you can turn off the passcode for the video. So you pick English, and I guess unless you speak another language mentioned on there, and then so you go through this. It'll take a couple of minutes. And then finish. And so let's try again. Let's see if it's going to work. Now, I'm not going to be able to show this because if it locks down my screen, it's going to lock everything down. You're not going to be able to see the section. So, but anyway, I'll just show you. Like I say, it defaults to homework, so you got to do the quiz and test because it's coded as a quiz. And then when you click, then it should work. Oh, did it finish installing it? I've done this on my office computer. Well, anyway, we got several days. We can deal with it. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Yeah, that's Trinisha. That's the best way to get in. I know that there's an invitation kind of way, but and then I can't do this to show you for the video, but it looks like I gotta close down the browser and reopen it in order to do the lockdown thing. So I'd have to close all this down and then come back in. But anyway, if you need help, just bring it up in class. We're gonna get it worked out, all right? But try to do it before the next class so you can bring in any questions you got. All right. So we got about a little over half hour. I'm just going to go over a few things real quick. As I had said, is this first section is review. It's on quadratic equations. All right. There's essentially three different ways to solve quadratic equations. There's factoring, which is a prerequisite for this course. There's the solve like a square root property and completing the square are essentially the same method. It's just that um, the square root property is the end method for completing the square, and then there's a quadratic formula. We'll just look at some examples, and then the one I'm actually going to show you and write out, I'll do the completing the square. All right, so quadratic equation is just something of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. That's what we call the standard form there. Except for the completing the square method, you have to have it in that form to either factor it or use the quadratic formula. Now, a can't be 0 because if there's no x squared term, then it's not a quadratic. It's just a plain old linear equation. So for the factoring, again, this is just a review. Um, there's what we call the 0 factor property. If we set two factors equal to 0, and we illustrate it right here. If a times b is equal to 0, then that means it's a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0. And so the reason why that works is because of the 0 factor property. Because if you got the prerequisites from this course, when you factor something like this, you're essentially going to write it as two binomials multiplied. All right. So in other words, everything's got to be on one side set equal to 0. Preferably, in my opinion, it's best to put them on the left-hand side. But if you learn another way and you know how to do it, you're not going to get an argument from me. But generally, I like to go with the standard form the way it appears. So all the three terms on the left-hand side set equal to 0, and then factor it, and then 2x minus 1 is equal to 0, x plus 1 is equal to 0, and that means x is equal to 1/2 and x is equal to negative 1/2. These are the properties. I mean, this is essentially just the procedure broken down. Write it as ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Factor, set the two factors equal to 0. Solve each one of those. And then it's always a good idea to check them. I know that most people don't like to check them, including me, because it takes time. But especially when you're doing your homework, it's really important to check them because that can give you confidence that you've done them right. So that way, if you get into a test and maybe you don't have enough time to do it, you'll have the confidence to know that you've done it, that you're doing it right. Because I've had people try to factor things like this and they'll just be off by a sign. And if you're off by a sign, in other words, if you had 2x plus 1 times x minus 1, then those solutions are not going to come out right. Now, in Math 097, we do cover the square root property. And basically, what that is where you isolate your x squared term on one side, and on the other side, you have nothing but a number. And so you take the square root of -9, and you've got to put a plus or minus in front of it. Because remember, there's two roots. So you throw the plus and minus in front of that to get both of them. So then the solution to this would be x is equal to 3i and x is equal to negative 3i. See, and then we'll come back to that one in a minute. But I'm going to refresh your memory about the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula was always my favorite way to do because factoring sometimes it takes trial and error. And I like a method that I can just chug away at and know that I'm getting where I need to be. Okie dokie. So 2x squared plus 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. So it's got to be all on one side or another. Now, in reality, you could put them all on the other side, and that means that it would change the sign of all three of them. with the quadratic formula, that doesn't necessarily present as much of a problem as it would if you're factoring. So, but we're going to live with it over here on the left-hand side. The a, b, and c, the number in front of the x squared is a, the number in front of the x is b, the number in front that's standing alone is the c. There's the quadratic formula there. X is equal to negative b plus or minus. See, that throws that plus or minus in there. So that's how you get your two solutions. And then the square root of b squared minus 4ac, that's what we call the discriminant. And then that's all over 2 times a. So we just pop everything in. Remember, if b is negative, then that negative sign is always there. So if b is negative, you're going to end up with a positive value there. So just remember that. B squared minus 4ac. So let's just go through and see what it looks like when we whittle it down. We got negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 12. And remember, you've got to take your factors. I'm sorry, you've got to simplify your radicals. So if there's a perfect square inside of here, which this is 4 times 3, the square root of 4 is 2. So that's why that comes out there and the 3 stays in. And then you can reduce these as long as it's a common factor for both of the terms up there and the denominator. So the way they show it is they factor out a 2, since it's obvious there's a 2 right there, and put it in front. And then you can take out the common 2 there. 2 goes into 2 one time and into 4 twice. Now this one right here is what we call an irrational. They're irrational factors, so you can't really break them down any farther because the square root of 3 is going to stay like that. You can't bring it down any further. You can also use that discriminant, and the discriminant can help you find certain kinds of solutions. All right, so for example, if you wanted to, if the discriminant is positive, in other words, like this one was, then that means 2 real solutions. If the discriminant is negative, in other words, when I say negative, I'll go back up here and show you. This was the discriminant. But see, the discriminant is what's inside of that radical. So if there's a negative sign in there, that means you're going to have an I, which means 2 complex solutions. See, that's 2 complex solutions there. Or imaginary solutions, they call them here. And then if the discriminant is 0, then that means there's only going to be 1 repeated solution, because you're not going to have anything to plus or minus. So for example, on this with the discriminant, we don't go over this in 097, so I'll just go through it briefly, is you just look at the discriminant, and since you're just basically doing the b squared minus 4ac, and that comes out to positive 81. So there's 2 real solutions. You don't have to do the whole thing in order to figure it out. And then they give us an example application here. And they ask us to set this thing with p equal to 115. So it looks like that. But you can't solve it until you isolate and set it equal to 0. So that means subtracting the 115 from the 107, which gives you negative 8. And then you can just throw it into the quadratic formula. One of the things you could do, if you want to, is just multiply everything by 100 and you would have whole numbers. But they use the decimals. All right, now the thing I really wanted to concentrate on is the thing that Math 097 does not cover, which is completing the square. They tell you about the square root property, but not completing the square. All right. So what you essentially got to do is play like there's no C. If in most cases there's going to be a C, you just take it and put it on the other side of the equal sign. And then what you're going to be looking at is the x squared plus the bx part. Then whatever that number is in front of the b, you're going to take it and divide by 2 and square it. All right. So let's kind of look at it in an example. That's kind of a little, when you look at it in a theoretical point, it's kind of a little bit harrowing. But anyway, I'm just going to go through this one, and then I'm going to go through one on the board, a fresh one, all right? All right, so instead of having all three terms on one side, you're going to get rid of the c and put it over there. Now, if this is already a perfect square, you don't have to worry about this, but this one's not. So now what we're going to do is remember we said we're going to take half of the b coefficient, which is 4, divide it by 2 and square it. Now, they don't really show you this, but I'm going to show you in the next example. I'll explain it now. This is 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. All right. So they're adding a 4 on this side. That's actually 4. And so this is a 4 also because that's 2 squared. And so 4 plus 1 is 5. And then once you've got that as a perfect square, you write it as a square, and then you use your square root property to solve it. So if you didn't understand that, I'm actually going to go through one for you, and that'll be all I'm going to do today. Get you out a little bit early on your first day. Make sure you can get everything straightened out if you got any questions and such. Let's see. All right. I'm using the Google Jamboard. Let's go over there. Gotta see, I had a problem up here. Okay. All right, so here's what we want to do. Solve by completing the square. All right. Now, the reason you'll know that this is whether it's a perfect square or not is because this would have to be a perfect square here, and that's not. If it was 16, you might have one, but that's a 32. So what we got to do is we got to move that C value over. Oh, and remind me, I got to check which other people came in. I got most of y'all. So I'm going to subtract the 32. All right. Now, remember I said I'm going to kind of do it as an aside. You had that thing that said b over 2. Well, in this case, b is 12. And so 12 over 2. And I just reduced it down to a number. I didn't like how they left it as, was it 4 over 2 and then squared it. But anyway, so we got to square the whole thing. So I went ahead and reduced it so you can see. It comes down to 6. So that's equal to 36. So what I do with that, that's going to be my new C on the side with the other two values, the ax squared and the bx. So now what I'm going to do is So I'm going to add 36. And now to keep this as a balanced equation, I've got to add that 36 on that side as well. See, I've added 36 to both sides. That's what we do with equations. If we want to manipulate them, we do the same thing to one side as at the other. It's called the addition property. Now right here, because of that little step we took of half of the b term squared, that turns this into a perfect square. In other words, it can be written as this. We're using that number before it was squared, right there. And if you don't believe it, let me just kind of go through it with you. 6 squared is 36. X squared is just x squared. 6 times x is 6x, and there's 2 of them, or you multiply them by 2, and that gives you the 12x. All right, so that's a perfect square over there. This is a 4 now. So negative 32 plus 36. All right, now what we do is we take the square root of both sides. Square root property. So one of the last things that we go over in Math 09-7, the prerequisite for this. And we got to throw in a plus or minus. So see, now in this case, that's a perfect square too. So when we take the perfect square, take the square root of a perfect square, it's just going to pop out. All right, one more step. We're going to -6 on both sides to get x alone. So it's -6 plus or minus 2, and that gives us our 2 solutions. So x is equal to -6 minus 2, and x is equal to -6 plus 2. So this is x is equal to -8, or x is equal to -4. All right, any questions about that procedure? Like I said, that's the only thing in 1.5 that's really new that wasn't covered in Math 09-7. All right, and if, like I said, I'm going to try to remember, if you remind me, because it does, I don't know if it's available immediately or not. Usually it has to take a little while for the video to get in there, but I'll try right after class. But let's go back to the roster and make sure I got everybody. All right, because we're pretty much just about out of time. Okay, so I got everybody. Let's see. I think, yeah, Trinisha's here. Let's see. Jennifer Connor, did she come in? Jennifer? All right, I'm going to assume not. Lauren Disick? I can also tell because usually the names are on here. Sometimes people, like I see somebody that says just iPhone. I got no way of knowing who that is. So whoever that is, let me know. So Lauren, I'm assuming is out here. Jessica Jaquez. I don't see the name. Julie Kincaid. Julie out there? I guess not. Jordan Majereau. Don't see the name on here. So that's all the ones. So those are the five people that I don't see. So if you're out there hiding under an iPhone, let me know. All right. I'm assuming y'all can still hear me, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I tell you what,
Yes.
I'm gonna let y'all go, but make sure you do your upload of your photo ID and do that little respondus browser, and then also under homework, you know, to stay current, do this one. I think I'm gonna go out there and take those videos out. If you ever want them, they're real easy to find under the multimedia library. Like you can just click video and go to that section. You know, I would rather just make them available like this, rather because if they're in there, they're a grade. You know, they're going to be a grade associated with them. And I had problems with them the last year or so. Like they weren't working right as far as grade transferring over. But anyway, like if you go in here and you just go to the section we were in, and if you want to, see, they've got the videos in there. You can watch them that way. They have other stuff too. All right, so it's 10 o'clock. I'll let y'all out a little bit. I don't know, so I'll see you on Thursday morning, all right? Stick around if you got any questions. All right, two Kaylas. Kayla's, y'all got any questions? Kayla Jones, Kayla Williams? Or y'all just lurking out there?